18-year-old girl disappears for 24 years, found with a disturbing secret. When children come of age and become teenagers, they believe that they can finally be independent, live on their own, make their own decisions. Most of the time they're wrong. In truth, it usually takes a little bit more learning to get to that point. Elizabeth Fritzl had a difficult childhood. That much cannot be disputed. From a young age, she was subjected to abuse by her father and casual disinterest by her mother. Once she turned 18, however, she knew all of that would come to an end. She would finally be free. Elizabeth grew up in Amstetten, Austria. Her mother and father had been married at a very young age. Joseph was 21 and his bride-to-be, Rosemary, was only 17. Still, the two were in love, and that love soon blossomed into a family of their own. The Fritzls had 7 children, 2 sons and 5 daughters, including Elizabeth. Despite being part of such a large family, Elizabeth had to contend with her father's hateful attitude more than her brothers and sisters. But she went through life with an upbeat attitude, knowing that one day she could leave that place behind and start her own life. At age 15, once she'd finished school, she took a job as a waitress. Elizabeth made good friends working in the restaurant. She confided in that friend about the abuse she'd received at the hands of her cruel father, and the two resolved to run away to Vienna. Unfortunately, Isabel's departure was premature. She was not yet 18 and was eventually found by police and returned to her parents. She returned to work as a waitress and was soon afforded a job in nearby Linz, Austria. Now was her chance. She was finally 18 and able to go out on her own, free from her father and mother. But on August 29, 1984, Elizabeth disappeared without telling any of her friends where she was going, nor her siblings. She had simply vanished. Elizabeth's mother filed a missing persons report almost immediately. She'd done this before and been gone for only 3 months, and yet Rosemary Fritzl believed that this time was different. Though she didn't know the extent of her husband's abuse, she knew that her daughter had always talked of leaving to be on her own. But surely she wouldn't go without saying goodbye. Almost a month later, Joseph Fritzl handed a letter over to police. It was postmarked in Brno and stated that Elizabeth had been tired of living with her family and was staying with a friend. She warned them not to look for her or she'd leave the country for good. The only problem was none of Elizabeth's friends had any idea where she was either. Elizabeth's father believed that she may have joined some sort of religious cult, and that was likely their prisoner or had been brainwashed by them in some way. According to him, she'd always been rather impressionable, and he told the police as much. The father told police that she had most likely joined some religious cult. In fact, Elizabeth was being held prisoner, but not by any sort of religious cult, nor had she been stolen by a kidnapper while hitchhiking. No, the truth was far worse. On the day of her disappearance, Elizabeth and her father were home together. Joseph had asked his daughter if he could help her carry a door into the cellar. Once they got down into the basement, Joseph Fritzl held an ether-soaked towel on Elizabeth's face. She fell unconscious, and he chained her to a wall in the basement. The chamber he'd built for her was soundproof, locked from the outside, and was unknown to anyone else in the Fritzl household. He was going to make sure she never ran away again. When she awoke, Joseph explained the situation to his daughter. She was never going to leave the basement again. She was never going to see her friends again, nor any other member of the family. He then made her write the letter, which he would give to police, threatening her at gunpoint if she did not cooperate. After that, Joseph visited her in the cellar every 3 days on average to bring food and other supplies for the next 2 decades. Joseph's abuse of his daughter became more pronounced after that. He'd graduated from physical and emotional torture and had moved on to sexual abuse. This abuse resulted in Elizabeth becoming pregnant a whopping 7 times during her confinement. 3 of her children were imprisoned with their mother, Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix. The 3 other children were actually raised by Joseph and his wife Rosemary in the upstairs home. In all 3 cases, Joseph claimed that he discovered the children outside his house as foundlings, and that Lisa, Monica, and Alexander had all been left there by long-lost daughter who had obviously bitten off more than she could chew away from home. Once the 4th child had been born, Joseph put Elizabeth and her children to work, enlarging their own prison with their hands. He provided them a television, radio, and VCR, as well as a refrigerator for storing food and a hot plate for cooking. But he offered up dire warnings and harsh punishment for those who would not obey. He warned that anyone who tried to meddle with the cellar door or its locks would receive an electric shock and die. Told them that they'd be gassed if they tried to escape. If they refused to obey, he would punish them by shutting off their lights and refusing to deliver food for days at a time. Meanwhile, Elizabeth did her best to care for her remaining children. Rosemary, however, was blissfully unaware of what was happening in the basement. Neither she nor any of her other children were permitted to enter the basement, which they all believed was Joseph's secret workshop. And though the family received regular visits from social workers for their foundlings, they never saw nor heard anything that might arouse their suspicions. A tenant who rented a ground floor room in the same house for 12 years claimed to hear noises coming from the basement, but never could tell what they were. Joseph, of course, explained the sounds were from the gas heating system. Then one day, Elizabeth's daughter Kirsten, who was now 19, became very sick. Kirsten became so seriously ill that Joseph had no choice but to accede to Elizabeth's pleas to take her to a hospital. This single act of kindness would be what led to Joseph's downfall and the rescue of Elizabeth and her 3 children. Elizabeth helped carry Kirsten out of the basement under cover of darkness and take her to the doctor. It had been the first time she'd seen the outside world in 24 years. The story that Joseph told to the medical staff about finding Kirsten on the street was more than puzzling. It almost strained credulity. Kirsten was admitted to the hospital with severe kidney failure, but her mother and father were nowhere in sight. The police were called, and the subsequent investigation revealed the truth about the whole thing. Elizabeth and her children were finally freed. Elizabeth and her 6 children were given medical care and mental health treatment and eventually moved to an unnamed village in central Austria. Though they all require ongoing therapy for their severe PTSD, the children love being able to play outside and love being able to be together. Joseph Fritzl was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole on March 19, 2009. He took the deal without any appeal or argument. He was placed in Garston Abbey in a special wing for the criminally insane. With any luck, he too will never be given the chance to see the light of day, so long as he remains imprisoned. Check out these other videos from Let Me Know. If you haven't made the move to subscribe to our channel, all you need to do is click on that red subscribe button. Thank you for watching.